Welcome to the True Wealth Podcast, where we specialize in helping aspiring homeowners break into the real estate market and help investors create and build wealth through real estate. We will be sharing some of our best advice around real estate so you can purchase your first home or reduce taxes and achieve financial freedom. Your host, Sean Adiemi, is a certified financial planner, mortgage professional. Financial freedom is possible when you have the right mindset, coaching, advice, and community. So, let's get real.
Welcome to the True Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Adiemi. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today, we're going to talk about building passive income through real estate. And on the show today, I have Sharice Walker. Sharice is going to share her journey and her story, how she's been able to build her portfolio, some of the challenges she's gone through. But I'll let her do a lot of the talking, and I'm sure there's a lot of valuable information and lessons we can take away from her story. Sharice, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You reached out and we connected, and you told me a lot about your story. And I think it's very, very encouraging to hear of the challenges you went through and what you've been able to do to overcome some of those challenges. So take us back to the beginning, and let's hear your story today.
Great. Well, the beginning, I have always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. That's something that I dreamed about. And I had 4 kids. And unfortunately, I did not get to be that stay-at-home mom. I had to be the breadwinner. So I actually, at 22, started teaching college. By 30, I was directing colleges. And then I opened up a college in our valley. And so I was doing really, really well. My first marriage didn't go so well. So that ended when my youngest was 3 years old. And about the same time that my youngest got kicked out of preschool was actually the same day. I was actually the CEO of the college decided that his best friend was going to come work for the college instead. So he wanted to move back to Utah. And so I was ousted. That actually hurt because I had just spent time doing the accreditation. Like I sent my kids to their cousins for a month during the summer so that I could work. And so for me, I had given my blood, sweat, and tears. I stayed at the college for about 40 hours, I think. I got there at about 8 o'clock in the morning. I left the next day at 5 o'clock. I did not go home. So trying to make our accreditation. And as soon as we got the accreditation, my boss shows up, no joke, a couple of days later with this guy saying, "Hey, you don't have a job anymore."
Oh my goodness.
It was horrible, because now I was a mother of 4. I didn't have a job. And fortunately, things worked out. I believe in the higher power and everything worked out that way. But I realized at that point that I did not ever want to work a 9-to-5 job because I gave so much to that company and it didn't work out. And so out of a job, and I met my next husband a little while later, and long story short, we got into a situation where I was able to be a stay-at-home mom. And so it was fortunate for us. But to do that, we were on food stamps. And so I went from a 6-figure income to being on food stamps, a little embarrassing. And I remember standing in line, and I was at Walmart, and it was like 5 o'clock rush hour. So you know how everybody lines up in the grocery store because they're all getting up, trying to fix up their dinner. So standing in line, at the checkout, and a whole bunch of people were behind me. And my mom was with me. I just had a newborn baby, so she was in the cart. And I had to, the lady rings up the total. I pick up an envelope full of food stamp checks, and everyone, I kind of look back and everyone's like, oh, so embarrassing. And so I thought, oh my gosh, there has to be a better way, really. There really. Well, about the same time, and we had a little bit of a nest egg because I did go back to work for a short time with the whole purpose to be able to have a nest egg of a little bit. And so my brother calls me up and says, I have this great idea. Why don't we invest I have this dive shop down in Honduras, so why don't we invest? And so I'm like, well, bro, I'd love to. And we didn't have the greatest relationship at that point. And so I was looking for a way to create a relationship because family's everything, right? You want to be able to have a good relationship. And we used to be inseparable growing up. And so I thought, this is my opportunity. I can get close to my brother again. And so he told us how much he needed, which was about, well, $250,000. And so I said, okay, well, we're on food stamps. Can't do that. And he goes, no problem. We're going to find some investors and we'll do this. And so about a month went by. We tried to find investors. We couldn't. And so I was driving home one day and it hit me. Like I passed the bank and it hit me like, oh, I can mortgage my house. Like I can take out money because we had equity. And so I call up my brother and I say, hey, how about like I have enough equity in our home so I can just take out a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit. And that way we can pay for this. So I said, but I need you to understand we're on food stamps. And so we can't make the monthly payment for this. And he's like, no problem, Sharice, I can do that.
So at this point, was your house paid for, or
No.
you still had a mortgage, but just
Yeah.
not, you had a lot more equity in the house?
Yeah. So we had, I'll just tell you, I think it was about 360,000 or something is what we owed. Well, it was in the 300s. So we were able to take out about $156,000 home equity line of credit. So this was 9 years ago. And so he's like, okay, great. And the whole time, like when I went to sign the paperwork, first of all, we didn't understand that because none of it made sense. So we thought we were getting a smoking, kill, and deal, right? Well, turns out it's an interest-only loan, which we didn't know, and that you had to make monthly payments of a certain amount, which we said okay because he was going to make the payments. So we truly thought that if all of this went south, he was going to still make the payments and we'd be out like $10,000. So, okay, it's worth the investment. A year goes by as we're not able to sign any paperwork. I won't get into those details, but long story short, we lose it all, like all. So,
Wow.
yeah. So I had 5 kids, was pregnant with my next. And so I had started because I'm not one to sit around. Yes, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but I was kind of getting a little bored. And so I had started studying about real estate investing. And I was going to local RIA, which is real estate investor meetings, and I was doing things. And so this one luncheon meeting I went to, they said, stop researching, just take the leap. So I had just gotten my real estate license. And so I'm like, okay. So I left the meeting. I did a quick search, which was, what was available in the market. I drove straight to this home. I made an offer and I got it accepted. So I'm like, oh, shoot, And so we started real estate, and that was our first flip. And did really well with it. And so before we sold that one, and I found hard money lenders. I found different people to be able to pay for it because obviously we couldn't. And so my brother had made 2 payments on this HELOC, and that was it.
Wow.
So now, we were really in trouble. And P.S., by the way, the relationship with my brother, you should see the email that he sent, was just heart-wrenching. So everything backfired, obviously. And so before we sold that one home, I went and found this other home that just came up on the market. And so I'm like, honey, you made an offer, got accepted. And so I think the takeaway from that is that you can study all you want, but at some point you have to take action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't know what the heck you're doing, which we didn't. And so we were able to make enough from those 2 homes that we were able to start making the payments, and we were doing pretty well. So things were okay, and we had pulled ourselves out. Then my best friend comes to me and she's like, hey, I have this great idea. How would you like to invest in my marketing company? So I'm like, okay. And at this point I was doing real estate. And so I'm like, but I'm not going to work in the company. I have no desire, no interest. She's like, that's fine. Well, I will not go through the details on that one. Another $175,000 in the cat. It was only supposed to be 40. At this point, friends and family, don't ever invest. But so $400,000 in the hole. I'm surprised my husband and I are still married because I don't know if it were switched. Would you be okay with that if your wife, between family and friends, lost $400,000? How would that make you feel?
Yeah, that's heart-wrenching. It's funny. I always tell people this. I invest in my brothers. My brothers and I work together quite frequently. But even with that, we sign paperwork. Like, it's not just we look at documents, we look at numbers, we run the numbers independently. Okay, he brings an idea to me and say, okay, look at this project here. What do you think? I take my pen, I write down my numbers, I make sure it makes sense. before we do it. And even when there's money's changing hand, we're all signing documents. He's my brother.
Yeah.
And those who know me, my brothers and I were very close.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, we dot all our I's, cross all our T's, run our numbers, do stress test analysis, make sure whatever project, whatever we're doing, make sure that it's profitable. Fortunately, we've never had anything go south.
Right.
But some of these things you're sharing here is a good example of why doing business with family and friends can be tough, and sometimes it's not just about intention, right? You can have all the greatest intentions, but what's backing up that intention? What's the tangible potential return on that investment? What metrics are they using to evaluate how profitable this project is going to be? Because between your friend and your brother, you lost $400,000,
Yeah.
and I can imagine how hard that must have been for you. So
Mm-hmm.
back up a little bit and go back to when you bought the second house. You
Mm-hmm.
weren't really working. How were you able to get a mortgage? Like, how were you able to structure it? How were you able to get back into the real estate and start making money from it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so that's kind of the method that I've created. Is it's called the fly free method. And so I focus on F, the fly only. So F would be your finances. You really do have to look and see what can you afford and what can you not. Fortunately, we did have, like I told you, a little bit of money that we were able to use to put down on the first house. And so the second is L, which would be leverage. So I started leveraging people, people that I knew. I knew somebody that he was willing to go in 50-50 with us. And so I said, okay, we'll make the payments. We'll do these things if you can bring in the down payment. And so he did. And so we were able to buy that second house with what's called OPM, other people's money.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, we didn't have to, like, we had to pay for the repairs and stuff, which what we did is we went and opened up a Home Depot line, like a credit card. We opened up 2 different lines of credit on our credit cards, and we started using those. So, and it was a 0% interest balance. So
Mm-hmm.
we didn't really have to make, yeah, you had to pay the minimum, but $50, $80, $100, that was doable. And
Right.
so that's how we started to get the money, is we started to use other people's money.
So break down your investment. So the property you bought, the first one, what did you do? Did you renovate it, flip it, and then resell it? How did you even find the property to be able to buy it at a price that made sense for you to be able to flip it?
Yeah, so I will be honest, 3 or 4, actually about 5 or 6 years ago now, a lot of those properties were on the MLS, and they still are. Actually, there was one yesterday that was selling for 200 in a market of 500,000. So you can find them online. You can find them, and that's so many different places. You can get a list from the county records. A lot of those that have like notice of default, it's called NOD. So you can get notice
Mm-hmm.
of default to see who is going into pre-foreclosure. Maybe they have tax liens against them. Maybe they have, different things like that. So you have to file it with the county if someone's
Mm-hmm.
going to start to foreclose on your home. So there's a list of those. You can get probate. That would be people who are passing away or have passed away. And so
Mm-hmm.
now, they're trying to figure out what to do. So there's lots of different lists that you can get online that are free. Or
Mm-hmm.
there's programs like I use actual programs that have a monthly investment, but that you can get lists and you can start calling people.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny. We had I had an episode with another real estate investor, and he was talking about similar stuff. Is
Mhm.
there's opportunities out there outside of the MLS if you're willing to do the work to find these properties. So
Yeah.
that's what you did. You
Mhm.
found a discounted property. In your case, you renovated it. Or did you buy this one solo, or did you partner
Yeah.
with somebody else to do it?
No, the first one we bought solo, and so we got so many bids, and we hired a contractor, but he was taking a long time. Like contractors, at least get 3 bids, and then interview, vet, go and see what they've done, go call their rent, testimonials, ask what properties and what projects they have right now, because
Mm-hmm.
it happened to a client of mine that he took him for everything he had, and 2 years later nothing had been done on the property. And so I'm like, I got involved. I'm like, forget this, I'm going to help you renovate this house, and we're going to get it back on the market. So it's It's tough, but we did buy the first one ourselves, and we put about $30,000 into it. And so we bought it for 200, put about 35 into it, and we sold it for 310. So that was a good little chunk out of that
Mm-hmm.
huge amount that we had lost from Honduras.
Wow. So
Mhm.
fast forward now, tell me about like what strategies do you talked about your fly method, but break it down for the average person is like how do you get started on this journey? How did you were you able to put yourself back up after $400,000 loss is no joke.
Yeah. No, and I didn't tell you the ending of the story. We now have multiple properties and so we have a very large home that we live in. And I would say mortgage free because all of our rental income now covers our mortgage, but it's not that we're using that money to cover it. Like we still have to pay our other mortgages, we still have to do those things. But,
Mm-hmm.
the IRS, they look at it as, hey, you're making this much money and this is all income, even though it's not. But if you were to look at it, we make way more than what our mortgage payment is. And so it's a happy ending. There really is a happy ending. And we were able to take it a huge difference and a huge swing. And so I was able to retire my husband in December of 21 from his job. So that's our happy ending that, because of real estate investing. But someone who's getting started, you do need to know what you're doing. And I would highly recommend that you hire a mentor because,
Mm-hmm.
I took a year and a half to learn this stuff. And then for the last 8 years, I've been doing this stuff. And so you want to be able to have somebody who you can bounce ideas off. I didn't have anybody. And so there's things I look back and go, oh, now that I know, and because I've been able to help numerous clients do their own flips and be involved in that process, like going and, hey, Sharice, what's selling now, what's going. So you need to know what your market is, you need to
Mm-hmm.
know what the rental rates are, you need to know what vacancy rates are, you need to know what the median income is, and you also need to know, like, for example, what's here in Utah where I'm at, we have a lot of kids, like I have 6. And so
Busy home.
yes, it's very busy. And so, juggling all that plus doing what I do. And so for us, most people are not going to be happy with a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Utah. Just not going to happen. So they're going to want minimum 3 or 4 bedrooms, minimum 2 bathrooms. But in another location, 2-bedroom, 1-bath might be okay. So you need to know what your market is and what the demand
Mm,
is. And, if you're in a snowy place, again, like we are, a lot of people want a garage. Whereas if you're in Phoenix, you don't really need a garage. So you
right.
just need to know what the demand is and then how to find the properties. And then once you get them, you need to have a team. And so that would be the why, your team, and making sure that like there needs to be a reason that motivates you because, real estate investing is tough and it can get frustrating at times.
All the gurus out there make it seem like it's a cakewalk. And I always have to talk my clients off the ledge to say, you're gonna need to put in work.
Sure.
It's not easy work.
Mm-hmm.
However, do it over a long period of time, do it over a good number of years, and when you have the right team in place, you can make it really, really profitable. And there's different ways to invest in real estate. I always tell being a landlord is one of the ways you can do that if you have the stomach to go through the whole landlord and rental,
Mm-hmm.
using other people's money, flipping, wholesaling. There are many strategies to building passive income in real estate. You just have to find what works for you. And like you said, is having a mentor to kind of walk you through all of that.
And I think that's something that is important. And I'm glad that you talked about that because a lot of times you see online, hey, I can help you flip, I can help you. But I actually teach 7 different methods because it's not a one size fits all. And my husband's getting to the point, and he's getting older, that he's tired of the flipping and he's tired of the long-term rentals. I mean, so I help clients with short-term rentals. So there's like long-term or short-term rental. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have your wholesaling, which, and your flipping could be retail or it could be land. Like I have some clients that they buy, and it's not like this right now, but they buy a property and 1 or 2 months later, they flip it for $150,000 and didn't have to do a single thing to it. All we did is put a sign back on the land and we flipped it that way. So hard money lending is another way. If you have equity in your home, and you can pay your HELOCs. You have to remember there is a monthly payment, but you can take out the equity in your home, especially right now when people have a 2.5% interest rate, a 1.75, a 3.25. You can take that equity out because right now homes doubled in price, right, over the last 3 years. So use that equity, and then people are turning around and doing something with it. Like I know somebody who, and I told you about this, he took out an interest rate at 1.9 of $2 million. Obviously, he had a little more money, but he's making, so the mortgage costs $40,000 a year for him, and he's making $900,000. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's 90. That's a big difference. But my point is he's making a huge amount of money on that because he's just doing investing like through people like you with finances, as well as he can be a hard money lender to other people. So you don't have to do anything other than just loan. And if somebody defaults, guess what? You get the title to that property. So it's great.
That's actually on that note. That's actually one of the strategies that we've employed. Is we have access to some capital, and so because of what I do as a financial planner and as a mortgage broker, I often find times there are needs where someone needs a little bit of money to close on a property, or they. But sometimes when I'm structuring people's mortgages, maybe they owe some back. We call it CRA in Canada. You guys call it IRS. They owe
Right.
some back taxes in Canada, but they need to close on this property. They have the funds to pay it off, but it's better for them to close the property first. And so
Mhm.
sometimes having access to liquid cash that you can lend for the short term, lend for 1 month, lend for 2 months, lend for 3 months, make a return on it is another way to invest in real estate,
Right.
right? But having access to that, and just like you said, other people's money, but you need to do it properly. You need to make sure that if you're using leverage funds like borrowing money from your HELOC, you need to be able to make that payment. You also
Right.
need to know how to vet the projects that you invest in, because if you don't know how to run your numbers, if you don't know how to vet the projects, someone can sell you a hogwash and tell you you're going to make all this money. This is great, but their numbers are flawed. So you got to know how to read those documents, read all that spreadsheet. How much is it? The renovation's going to take? How long is it going to take? What's the cost of this? What's the cost of that before you invest? But like you said, there are many ways to invest in real estate. You just have to know which one you're more comfortable with. And sometimes you can employ a couple of strategies simultaneously if you have the appetite for it.
And that's what we do now too. And I think that is so genius that you said it, because I don't trust anybody anymore. Obviously, if my own brother and my own best friend could take the money, I don't trust anybody anymore. I double check everything. I get 10 deals minimum a day that come through my desk now. And I will look through them and, oh, yeah, you can make $200,000. You can make $500,000. Here's the spread. And I go and run my own numbers. And I'm like, first of all, let's add another 200 to what the sales price is, and let's bring down what you're saying it sells for by a significant amount. So we might
Mm-hmm.
walk, 10,000, 50,000, and you have to be conservative. So anything that you think is worth it, knock it down about 20%, and so that's something that you just have to make sure that you're aware of and that you vet yourself, or get someone that you work with very closely that you can partner with. So, the very last one is, and I'm sure you do this as well, as trust and syndication, where you pool your money with a group of people,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody else can go out and buy um, properties with it. That's happening a lot in multifamily deals. Like I know somebody who they just closed a deal and they had 40 people. Imagine being the attorney on that one.
Wow.
40 people getting together to have, but they can all say, hey, I have 110 doors, which means it's a property that has 110 units or apartments in that
Right.
property. And so, yeah, they own 110 doors, but, they're but some people are 28% difference or return on
Uh,
their investment.
that's right. Well, that's a lot of strategies you've mentioned. There are a lot of ways to make money in real estate. I'm glad to. I love this business.
Yes.
You have to know the right people. You have to know how to run your numbers. Before I let you go, tell me about how our listeners can find you, and if anybody. I know most of my audience is Canadian,
Hmm.
and so some of the terms we use here may be a little different, but I think the concepts you share are still important, and more so for many Canadians, with the Canadian real estate, I don't know if you know how much you know about Canadian real estate market, especially the GTA, Toronto, or even the Greater Vancouver area. House prices are insane. It's
Yes.
hard for anybody to be able to afford buying any property there. So many of our clients are now beginning to look at the US as, property prices are still much lower. The cost to get in is not as high. So I think I know there is value to what you do. How can our listeners find you?
No, I appreciate that. Can I close the loop on one thing real quick?
Sure.
My brother, it's been 9 years, and about a year ago, my brother came through and he was so embarrassed. Like, we have not talked very much, no matter how much I tried reaching out. And he said, Sharice, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that happened, and I'm embarrassed. And I said, bro, my life would not be where it is today had that not ever happened. And so I do believe things happen for a reason. And we have a great relationship now. So I didn't clarify and close that loop. I don't want people thinking we have this bad relationship. It's worked out, and I feel very, very blessed because of it. So thank you. People can find me I actually do some trainings as well. So if you were to go to www.flyfreeretiree.com, then they can go in there and find out. I do webinars that teach you how to do all of these things. So that is one way that they can find me. Shocker Properties, CHALKER Properties, PROPERTIES, at gmail.com. They can also email me there.
If you missed any of that, I'm going to put it in the show notes so our listeners can click on it and find you. Sharice, thank you very much for taking the time to share your story. It's an inspiration. Everything happens for a reason.
It does.
It's not how you fall. It's how you get up, pick yourself up, and what the lessons you learn along the way towards your journey. And I always say this, it's not a destination, it's a journey. And the journey can teach you a lot if you're open to it.
It's very, very true. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us. This has been the True Wealth Podcast. See you next time.
This is all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening to the True Wealth Podcast. Don't forget to rate, share, and subscribe to the True Wealth Podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at True Wealth Pod. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, ideas, and questions with us on our social media platforms, or email us at podcast@truewealthadvisors.ca. And who knows, your question might be the subject of a future episode.